My ungrateful sister betrayed our father when she let our stepdad walk her down the aisle. Now, our dad has cancer and is dying, but he's taking their feud to the grave. My family used to be really close, but that changed in 2003 when my dad discovered that my mom was having an affair with John, my dad's childhood best friend. He was basically his brother back then, and he was my dad's best man at his wedding with mom. He begged her to stay and work things out, but my mom ended up leaving him for John. Eventually, they got divorced, and my mom ended up marrying John 5 months later. My twin sister Sarah was always the stereotypical daddy's girl. Dad spoiled her a bit more than the rest of us, and she was basically his shadow back then. That's why it was really surprising to us that Sarah chose to stay with our mom after the divorce. Back then, me and her were the only ones to still live with our parents. We actually have 4 brothers. I chose to stay with dad, and Sarah chose to live with mom. On weekends, she came to stay with me and dad. To say that the divorce and my sister's choice to stay with mom screwed up my dad is an understatement. He tried to act like he was okay in front of us, but every single weekday for the year following the divorce, I could hear him cry himself to sleep. After the divorce, the relationship between Sarah and dad didn't change that much. He started to spoil her a bit more than usual and still remained the usual super dad, showing up at every parent-teacher conference, ballet recital, and soccer match, and being the most present dad possible. Things started to change when she suddenly changed her mind about med school. Our dad is a surgeon, and she always said that she wanted to follow his steps, but mom and John ended up pressuring her to change her career path to become a lawyer. Mom and John are both lawyers. During her studies, John started mentoring her, and they became really close. After she finished her education, he got her a job at his law firm. In 2017, Sarah got married, and my dad was absolutely thrilled about her wedding. He gave Sarah a blank check for her dream wedding. To be fair, he did this to all of us as he really likes weddings. But in Sarah's case, he was really excited because she is his only daughter, and I always remembered him talking about walking her down the aisle. At every wedding that we went to, he always said to her that he couldn't wait for the day to walk his little girl down the aisle. One day before the wedding, Sarah drops the bomb that dad and John will be walking her down the aisle together. Well, dad is the most non-confrontational person to walk on this earth, and she expected him to just suck it up. He didn't do that. They got into a huge fight, which is the first time I saw him get angry. And in the end, he didn't attend the wedding, and John ended up walking Sarah down the aisle. The fallout was massive. After the wedding, dad and his side of our family basically disowned her, and their relationship became non-existent. She tried to reach out after a while and make amends several times, but he simply didn't want to talk or hear about her. We expected him to turn around when she gave birth in 2018, but he doesn't even want to meet her kids. Earlier this year, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Unfortunately, the treatment didn't work, and he is now terminal. Even with that, he still doesn't want to see her again, and she doesn't understand that. I am very close to my dad, and these last few weeks have been really difficult for me. How do I convince her to let him go? Update 1. A week after I posted the original post, my dad started getting worse. His health started declining really fast. We lost him exactly 1 month ago. It wasn't easy. He was in a lot of pain and has been through so much in the last few months. As heartbreaking as it was to us, he deserved to rest. In the end, he was lucid enough to say his goodbyes to me and my older brothers. Hearing him say what he said to me was one of the most painful and beautiful moments of my life. His words to me meant a lot. I won't say exactly what he said because I believe that it's just too personal. He said goodbye to my daughters. It was just like when I was a kid. He gave them a kiss on the forehead, told them to be good girls, and said that he loved them. It was something I won't ever forget, and it hurts like hell that they are so young to understand what happened. They still ask about Grandpa. And every time I try to explain to them that he isn't coming back, they don't seem to understand that. How can I blame them? I'm only 27 years old. I honestly don't get it. I was supposed to get a lot more years with my dad. It doesn't seem fair at all. The worst part was that dad died without speaking to Sarah. I tried to talk to him about her, but he wasn't interested in speaking with her. She started getting more desperate, and then he suddenly died. His funeral was beautiful. A lot of people shared their stories about him, and it was heartwarming. Sarah saw dad for the first time since the night before her wedding. She didn't recognize him. He was very skinny. Dad was always a bit overweight, but he had lost a lot of weight from cancer. She cried a lot during the whole funeral. Mom and John tried to show up at the ceremony, and my uncles were forced to kick them out of the funeral. Dad's will was prepared in advance. Dad's family came from old money, so he always had a lot of money. He left a little bit of money and properties that were divided equally among all his kids, including Sarah. He left a trust fund for all his grandkids, including Sarah's kids, whom he never met. It was honestly expected. My dad never really cared about money that much. He just wanted us to be comfortable and make sure that his grandkids all had something to support them. The tricky part was the personal stuff. He left a really long letter to all of us, except Sarah. In my letter, he spoke to me about our story and about my childhood. It was really nice. I must have read the letter 100 times, and I cried every single time. One of Dad's favorite hobbies was photography. He was quite an enthusiast, and the subject of his photos was pretty much our family. As a result of this, we had a lot of pictures from growing up. He gave each of us a photo album, and behind each photo, he wrote where it was taken and a few words. I was honestly very surprised by this. He must have done this long before he died. It was a very thoughtful goodbye gift, something that was very typical of Dad. Sarah didn't get a letter, and her album didn't have anything written behind her photos. When she found out about this, she had a mental breakdown. The regret was eating her alive. She was admitted to a hospital and spent an entire week there. She is doing a bit better now, getting a little better each day. Her husband and I are really confident in her recovery. She is sleeping and eating almost normally now. She still starts to cry randomly multiple times on a daily basis, but it's getting better. Which brings us to last week, when my wife and I discovered that we were expecting again. It wasn't planned or anything like that. My wife switched to birth control last month, and she spent a week without taking the pill. She is still very early in her pregnancy, so we haven't told anyone yet. The thing is that I'm really angry. I'm angry that my future kid is not going to be able to meet dad. I'm pissed. Honestly, it doesn't seem fair at all. I'm angry, and I'm scared. My dad was supposed to guide me in the whole parenthood process. He was teaching me a lot of things with my daughters. I'm scared of doing this without him. I'm scared of not being a good father like he was to me because my kids deserve that. This whole situation could be a lot better. I play the what if scenario on my head every day, but it doesn't change anything. This is, honestly, a bitter ending. It doesn't seem fair at all, but the thing about life is that it's actually never fair.